Over the years, I've heard a number of different members of your team refer to your kind of philosophy in foreign affairs as realism. Is that a term you would use?
You know, traditionally, a lot of American foreign policy has been divided into the realist camp and the idealist camp. And so if you're an idealist, you're like Woodrow Wilson and you're out there with the League of Nations and imagining everybody holding hands and singing Kumbaya. And if you're a realist, then you're supporting dictators who happen to be our friends. And I just don't think that describes what a smart foreign policy should be. What I do think is accurate in describing my foreign policy is we don't have military solutions to every problem in the 21st century. The biggest challenge that we have right now is disorder. Ending two wars was important, not because I was under any illusions that would mean we wouldn't have any terrorist threat. It does mean, though, that by not having 180,000 people in Iraq and Afghanistan, it frees us up to be able to send a team to prevent Ebola, double down on our investments in things like cybersecurity, to look at the new threats and opportunities that are out there. That's in no way a concession to this idea that America's withdrawing or there's not much we can do. It's just a realistic assessment of how the world works.
So you seem to resist the realist label earlier, but when you talked about your goals in the Middle East, you seemed very concerned about disorder, and you didn't mention anything like democracy or human rights. And the countries you talked about partnering with, it's places like Egypt, where they came to power in a military coup, Saudi Arabia with public beheadings, Bahrain, where during the Arab Spring, they were beating nonviolent demonstrators, repressing that very violently. Do you have any concerns about the sort of long-term sustainability of those kind of partnerships?
Yeah, well, but this is a perfect example, Matt, of where the division between realism and idealism kind of breaks down. I am a firm believer that, particularly in this modern internet age, the capacity of the old-style authoritarian government to sustain itself just is going to continue to weaken. But in those conversations, I'm also going to acknowledge that for a country that, say, has no experience in democracy or has no functioning civil society, or where the most organized factions are religious sects, that progress is going to be happening in steps as opposed to in one big leap. The goal of any good foreign policy is having a vision and aspirations and ideals, but also recognize the world as it is, where it is, and figuring out how do you tack to the point where things are better than they were before. That doesn't mean perfect, it just means better.